Today is Thursday, and this Thursday is all about redemption, my friends. On Sunday, I took my kayak out on this body of water. I cracked through ice. 5 minutes in, I hooked a fish. I missed that fish, and then I went on to catch diddly squat for the next few hours. There's a fish. Gotta be a yellow perch. Oh no, he popped off. So I came out a couple days ago with the same goal, redemption. I caught a few fish, nothing too crazy though. But here, today is the day. Today is the day, my friends. We're getting through winter, we're getting into spring, still really cold. This water temperature I'm sure is sub 40, but I know there's fish to be caught. So that is the goal, my friends. Perch, crappie, it doesn't matter. Anything on ultralight is good with me. Let's get started. Before I get started fishing, I'm gonna go ahead and throw on some tunes, my friends. I got my headphones here. I'm gonna play some Charles Wesley Godwin, How the Mighty Fall album. That's right, baby. We got to jam some country music if we want to catch some fish. It's just the way it goes. I usually don't play music while I fish, but today is an exception. We got to jam out, folks. We got to jam out. So the other day when I was catching a few fish, I was using a Mule Minnow 2.2 on a 1/16 ounce mule jig. Today I'm altering my retrieve a little bit. I'm using a slip float rig. I love this rig when the water's cold, specifically in the early spring. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some of this stinky sauce on my horsefly right here, and we're gonna just let this puppy sit out there about 5 feet under the surface. This whole lake right here, pretty much 5 to 7 foot deep in most areas, so I think 5 foot will be about perfect. It'll be near the bottom, but not right on the bottom. This is where I caught a few fish the other day, so I trust there's fish here. I just never really dialed them in, and I feel like this rig right here should help me. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, there's somebody's nibbling on it. Float's still where it... Watch that float, baby. Something nibbled on it, and they dropped it. Oh yeah, he's popping it a few times. This might be a small gill or something. Oh yeah, I think something has it. Yep, it has it. Yes. Sometimes that float doesn't go all the way under. It just is not sitting right. And that is a prime example. That's a crappie, I think. All right. Yeah, it's a pretty decent little slabski. Nothing giant, but hey, we're on the board, my friends. This little slip float rig is wonderful for crappie throughout the year. And we penned him. Look at that. Not a very big fish, but this time of year I'll take what I can get. That's a black crappie right there. The other day I caught a couple little white crappie. There we go, we're on the board, and honestly I'm only on the second song of this album, so that tells me I've only been out here for a few minutes. All right, buddy. All right, go on, swim off now. Swim off, there you go. I've been listening to this album quite a bit recently. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Travis. He's a huge Charles Wesley Godwin fan. This guy's like an Appalachia, West Virginia dude, and he's really good. Kind of a smaller, under the radar artist, I would say, but he's got a really cool sound to him. This song Jesse that I'm listening to now, really good one. So the reason I chose this area specifically is because I know there's a little bit of rock out there, a little bit of vegetation, and I think there might be some brush down there. I don't know with certainty, but I've just had some luck in this general vicinity for a couple crappie and some other species as well. So I figured I'd start here. I might move around a little bit. I've got bank access for a decent stretch of bank. So we're just gonna fish, you know, a small section of water and gonna fish it hard. Seems like I gotta really put this in a specific spot to get the bites. And that feels like a perfect cast. Yeah, I'm gonna catch a fish on that cast. Let's go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. God, I looked up and he was on there. That took no time at all. I said that was a good cast. That's not a very big one. I think it's gonna be a similar. Not terrible. Not terrible. He's trying to fight. Nice. Wait a second. That's a white perch. Man, they just show up randomly sometimes. Mixed in with a crappie, I guess. Interesting. They're kind of interesting fish because they're kind of chunky. They're built about like a crappie, but I don't know. They're pretty cool fish, actually. They fight pretty good for ultralight, usually. This one was not quite as feisty, but that's explainable with the colder water. And he does not want to let go. All right, buddy. Sweet. 2 fish, 2 species. I dig it. See, buddy. I kind of feel... yeah, there we go. I was going to say, it felt... Wait a second. Dag. What's going on here? That was weird. I totally just missed a fish. That was weird. All right, let's get it back out there. Man, I really got to launch it out there, but that's why having like a good ultralight, a little bit longer in length, is ideal for this slip float. You can cast a little further and then you can move more line on the hook set. To be able to kind of get it out there a little ways can be beneficial when you're bank fishing, but moving that line is the key part. You know, you got that float sitting there and you got a fish underneath it. You got to move a little bit of line to get that hook penetration. So this is a 6'4" rod. I would say normally I'd probably prefer just even more length, maybe like a 7 foot, but all in all, you can get away with whatever you choose. I would just say that those shorter rods are not going to do quite as well for this rig. Oh, there's a bite. Come on, eat it. Some of these fish are just not committing. The thing about this rig is, you know, you have it sitting there and these fish can see it. There we go. That's might be a better fish. Hard to say. What I was going to say is, you know, when you're doing a vertical presentation like this, those fish can see it for some time. Oh, yeah. That's more like the size I was looking for. Yes, sir. Good little perch right there. Look at that beauty. That's a better perch for this lake. A lot of smaller perch in this lake. Promise I'll get back to what I was saying, but for now I just want to admire that beauty. 3 fish, 3 species. How about that? What I was saying is, when you run a vertical presentation like this, the fish can see that bait for a long period of time. So that's why I like to add some scent. You know, the water temp is cold, so anytime I have cold water, I like to add some scent, but specifically on a rig like this, because these fish can look at it for a long period of time. So using that scent just might help them commit just a little bit better. All right, as much fun as I'm having listening to music, I think I'm gonna call it. It's kind of distracting to try to focus on making this fishing video and at the same time listen to tunes, but I tell you, I was jamming, man. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to link some of Charles Wesley Godwin's music below. I'll tell you, pretty good artist. I think you should give him a listen. Let's talk about my rig for just a quick second. I will overlay some footage of exactly what you need to run a slip float rig, but essentially what it is I'll start from the top here. I know I've talked about this in the past, but because we're doing this video, I figure I might as well talk about it again. First and foremost, you've got the bobber stop. In order for a slip float rig to truly work, you gotta have the bobber stop. And what that does is it stops your bobber. Yeah, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Either way, once you rig that up, you can then put on 2 things. Number 1, a little bead to stop that bobber from going over the stop that you just put on, and then a float of your choice. Now, this is a mule peg float. You can rig this either peg style or slip style. In this case, as you know, slip style is what I'm doing. In this case, I've got a little swivel there. You don't technically need that, but I like to have a swivel there. I put a little split shot above it just to give me a little bit more casting distance. I put a couple more split shot just to give me a little bit more weight to where this sits down properly. And then lastly, the business end, you can obviously use, you know, a hook. You can use a jig. For me, in this case, I'm using a 1/32 ounce mule jig with a horsefly. I trimmed it down just a little bit just to make it slightly smaller. And then, as mentioned, I do really like scent this time of year. Anytime the water temperature is like sub 50 degrees, I feel like scent really does make a difference. This Pro Cure is really good stuff. I have no affiliation with them, but I tell you what, and ever since I started using it, I really do like it. I specifically like it on the Mule Plastics because I feel like it just really works well with the material. It just sticks to it, man. It's like glue. You can put a little dab of that on there and it should last you pretty much a full day of fishing. You know, you can reapply after a few fish, but for the most part, I don't think you really need to. The last really important thing here is a loop knot. In this case, I tied a really big loop knot, but that was just because, I don't know, I guess I'm getting old and I can't see worth a hoot. But a loop knot does a lot of good for you because it makes that jig just lay flat in the water column to where it's laying really naturally. If you tie a standard knot, sometimes your jig can get a little funky, and I feel like that can turn off a few fish. So I like to tie a loop knot, keep it natural. The other thing it does is it keeps it to where it rides over cover just a little bit better. So anyways, big fan of that knot. It's pretty easy to tie. I'm sure there's tons of videos on YouTube how to tie it, so you can always check that out after. But I tie a pretty simple knot and it works quite well. And now, because I put this split shot on here, I've got a tangled mess. Good. That's enough rambling about all that. Let's catch another fish, my friends. I might not even have to move locations at all. It feels like this is just like the place to be right now. The funny thing about this lake is like, there's so few contour changes. It's such a bowl of a lake. Like everywhere you go is about 6 to 7 foot deep. And so there's nothing super significant about this spot other than the fact that I believe there's just a little bit of rock down there, which just gives the fish something slightly different to hone in on. And when you're fishing lakes like this with very little structure changes, it is so important to find those areas that have that little bit different cover. And fortunately in this case, I was able to find one and it's working. Sometimes it's really hard to find those things, especially from bank, but you know, it just takes time, and it takes getting acquainted with your bodies of water. But as you get more acquainted with those bodies of water, always make mental notes of any cover that you find, because it can be very handy, specifically in times like this when those bites are so few and far between. You really got to hone in on those specific spots. Oh, there's a bite. Oh, come back. Oh, he might have it. Yeah, he does. All right. Man, so he went under there. That the float went underwater, and then it just stopped and it went back up, and it just looked like nothing was on it. But the thing about these fish sometimes is they'll eat it and they won't move after they come back up with it. So they'll swim up in the water column. This is another white perch. So there we go. Two of the same species finally. About the same size as the last one. Might actually be the same fish. I don't think it's the same fish, but I mean, it's pretty much a twin of the last one. I'll tell you what though, they'll bite that float and you'll see it bob once and then it doesn't move again, but that doesn't mean that they don't still have it. So sometimes you just kind of have to reel down your slack and just set the hook, or you know, feel for pressure. But usually by the time you feel for pressure, usually the fish have let go. So when in doubt, set the hook. It's not going to really cost you anything, you know. Well, that had been several minutes since my last fish, but we made it happen. So there's still fish in the area. I just got to have patience. And that really leads me to how I'm fishing this bait. Very simple, my friends, very simple. I'm casting it out there. I'm letting the jig flutter down to the bottom. The float stands up because I've got enough weight to where that float kind of stands up. And then I watch and I wait. And I wait as long as I possibly can before I lose my patience. Then I reel down my slack and I twitch my float a couple times. And most of the fish that I've caught have been after I've twitched it a few times. So, you know, sometimes that little bit of action just to kind of make it seem like that bait is alive, it might just be enough to draw their attention or get them to come in and commit to the bait. So I don't overwork it, especially when the water's cold, but during the summer when the water's a little warmer, you might be able to get away with a little more movement. This time of year, I am trying so hard to have patience and really let that thing sit there for long periods of time. However, you know me, I don't always have the best patience, so sometimes I do overwork my bait. So thankfully, I'm able to catch some fish today, but there's probably a lot of days where if I would just have a little more patience, I'd probably catch more fish. I know I'm inevitably going to get the question on what rod and reel I'm using. This is the Kuying Teton. It's a 6'4" rod, as I mentioned. I've got a size 100, I think Luz calls it. Basically a size 1000 reel. The Luz, I don't even know what model it is. It's the white one. And then some 2-pound copolymer, Trilene Sensation. You guys know I love that line. All in all, it's working quite effective. You can really use any ultralight. I would say a fast action would be your best friend though. You know, I would definitely avoid some of those big moderate things. They're just too whippy, and I find that it'd be a lot harder to bury the hook. So I like a fast action, but you guys know that already. I've talked about that 1,000 times. Oh, there's definitely a bite. Got him. Yes. The bobber never went under. It was just bobbing left and right. And is it gonna be? It's a crappie. Yes, sir. Little crappie, but a crappie nonetheless. Another black crappie. Man, he's skinny and small. Little buddy needs to go get himself a real meal. If I had a minnow, I promise I'd give it to you. All right, see ya, bud. I thought of another thing that I feel like is really helpful for this rig, specifically ultralight fishing with it. Jig size. You can absolutely fish a larger jig on this rig, and that's not necessarily a problem, but I will say using a smaller jig with a smaller hook, like what I'm using right now with the 1/32 ounce mule jig, it is a little bit beneficial because that smaller hook is obviously less of a turnoff for fish looking at your rig, but it also gives you the ability to catch more species of fish. If you're using too large of a hook, a lot of times you're kind of focused in on, you know, maybe just your crappie, whereas you're not going to be able to catch as many bluegill because they can't get their mouth around the hook. Using that smaller hook allows you to not only present a smaller bait, but it also gives you the ability to attract more species of fish. And that's why I like it. The other thing is this time of year, the smallest, most micro presentations seem to be some of the best for catching quantity of fish, or just fish in general. Using those bigger, bulkier baits are wonderful in certain times of the year, but when the water temps are low, a lot of fish, even the bigger ones, they really hone in on that smaller, easy meal. Oh, there's a bite. Does he have it? Bobber's not moving. He bobbed it. Oh, okay, I think he's back. I don't know if he has it yet. I don't want to ruin the opportunity. No, he didn't have it. I just went for it. I don't know what I was thinking. I knew he didn't have it, but I just was so, I don't know. I wanted to set the hook. Oh, what a goober. Oh, there's a bite. I twitched it once and immediately got a bite. I think he's got it. Yes, he does. Yes. I think it's another crappie, I think. Looks like he's fighting like a crappie. Could be a white perch, but feels a little skinnier. Yeah. Oh, it is a white perch. It's just a kind of skinny one. There you go. All right, so the common species today is white perch. 3 of these guys. This is the smallest, but good little fish. Why do they do this? This is what white perch do, man. And this is why you gotta use the higher durability plastics. Because the second you get the hook out, they just latch down on the plastic and just try to eat it. They're kind of weird fish, man. They're like the most basic looking fish. It's just like a bright silvery thing. And they're cool. I mean, they're oddballs, but they're cool. I wish we had more white bass in my area. I'm sure there are some, but I grew up in Kansas and white bass was just such a prevalent fish. That's a little bit better fish, I think. Feels like it's got more weight, and it's definitely dogging me just a hair. Yeah, I don't know what this is gonna be. Oh, is this a big crappie? I think this is a big crappie. Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. Nice crappie. Look at that one, guys. That's a healthy one. This makes that last crappie look like a little wimp. That last crappie was skinny and small. Not to say that this is a giant by any means, but he's very, very healthy. So I love to see it. There you go. Probably, you know, a whopping like 10 inches. But what I'm happy about is this right here. Nice chunky belly. Love to see that. And again, man. Oh, gosh. Poop. Poop on my glove. Poop on my dadgum glove. I don't know if he's the culprit. Who's the culprit? Somebody's the culprit. They got poo on me. In this cold water I throw them in, they just don't even know what to do. They're just like so disoriented. Well, I tell you what, I am definitely getting all the redemption I could have ever hoped for and more. Not that I've caught any giants by any means. I've caught some quality fish and I'm very happy with them. And I'm catching fish at a pretty good rate. So that's pretty awesome considering the water temp is, I don't know, maybe 38, 40 probably. That's just a guess. All that being said, by now you probably realize that I am a huge fan of the slip float rig. I talked about it last year. I'm talking about it again this year. It is an effective rig all year long, but specifically when you have cold water. So I'm gonna keep fishing it. I got a few more minutes to fish. Let's catch some more fish, fingers crossed. Hopefully a big one shows up. No matter what though, today has been a success. Oh my gosh, yes. That was an interesting bite. My float like jumped twice. It looks like a crappie. Yes, sir. He's fighting. He's not fighting very good, but it looks like an actual decent fish. He's decent. Not terrible. This is kind of like my standard crappie out here. Nothing giant, but fun little fish. Definitely could be worse. Honestly, I usually don't catch a lot of crappie out here in the early spring, so I'll definitely take it. I feel like the population is up on crappie, but the size seems to be down. 2 in a row, and that one ate it immediately. The second it got to the bottom, that fish was on it. I think I might have found myself a little group of crappie. I just dialed in the cast, I think. There you go. That's a white crappie. There we go. Okay, that's another species. You can see that this fish is a white crappie. A couple reasons I could see that. Number one, it is definitely narrower. It's not as tall as a black crappie. Number two, you can see the vertical barring. And then lastly, you can check the spine count on the dorsal fin. And this one looks to have like 5 spines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe that white crappie is 5 to 6 and a black crappie is 7 to 8 if I'm not mistaken. I almost hooked myself there. That got a little scary, but there you go, white crappie. Oh yeah. Does he have it? He's coming towards me, I think. That's 3. 3 all within like very small amount of time. It looks like another white crappie. Yeah, long and skinny. Not a big fish. I'm not gonna tell you it's a big fish, but 3 fish in one little area. There's something about that spot. There must be some kind of brush pile. There just has to be. Funny, I've been out here for quite some time and it was as simple as finding one little like 5-foot radius and I caught those fish real quick. But I've been fishing this area for some time now and I just happened to make the right cast. That tells you
location can be so key. So do not get discouraged if you're not catching fish. Sometimes it's just a matter of stumbling on that right little spot. It can be a little tiny spot and can make a world of difference. It's funny how that works, but you know, some days you hit those spots, some days you don't. I'm running low on time, so I think what I'm gonna do is try to cast towards that first spot I caught a couple fish. It's had some time to kind of recover now, so make a cast or two here and probably call it quits. Oh, did I just have a bite? Is there something on it? Yes! What is this? Feels like it's got some weight to it. Yeah, that's the big sluggish bass I was hoping for, I think. What a little bite, dude. He just kind of bobbed my float a little bit. It was so minimal. It's a healthy fish. What'd I tell you? Man, I was about ready to leave, and then my float bobbed once or twice, and I was like, wait a second. And there you have it. I told you this works for bass. I'm glad I was able to catch that before the day's through. Perfect little nose ring right there. There you go. Not gonna tell you it's a giant bass, but beautiful little specimen, healthy fish, really nice colors on him. And we're gonna turn him loose. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end on that cast. All right, see ya, buddy.
Needless to say, I got the redemption I was looking for, and it's all thanks to the slip float rig. Thank you, slip float rig. Have a good day. We'll catch you next time.